they do on the New Heights?
New Heights and cold, iced coffee hour. If we're having a conversation like 30 minutes in and Stu says some like really engaging line, they'll start the podcast with that line. And then they'll start the podcast. So that way it's like, oh, let me listen, tune in to hear when that part comes up because it sounds interesting.
Okay, great idea. But what if none of us say anything engaging? Then
And what are we doing?
the editor's got a tough. Yeah, that's a fair point. Fair point. Okay, why don't we get started? Welcome and happy New Year, Chief Audio Officers. Welcome to the Media Roundtable Special Edition, where we bring you unequivocally the worst music of any podcast that you may be listening to. We have market research to support this and the best analysis on the business of audio. That's what we're here to do. I'm your host, Dan Granger, CEO and founder of Oxford Road. This is going to be a fun episode, you guys. There's a lot happening. We're starting a brand new year. It's going to be an exciting year, and we're about to predict everything. And when you guys see the accuracy, or you're not going to see anything, you're going to see it through theater of the mind. You're going to visualize what you hear about the accuracy of last year's predictions. It's going to blow your mind. So you should really probably put money on some of these things. You should at least make strategic decisions that will make you more money based on some of the predictions, because I'm just going to tell you, we are deadly accurate in our predictions, and we're going to compare ourselves against last year. So we're going to not only grade ourselves on our predictions from a year ago, we're also going to do a roundup of some of the conversations we had last month about the look ahead, and we're going to vote and make our official predictions for 2024 right here, right now on the Media Roundtable podcast. And we're going to add some new ones. We're going to add some new ones and put some new topics on the board. I am joined today by some of my fellow agents of influence. We have, of course, the great Stew Redwine representing the creative side of the house.
Happy to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Stu. We also have representing the East Coast, James Ingrassia, our head of account services. James gets to go and partner with some of the smartest brands, because only the smartest brands work with Oxford Road. And so he's going to have insights and perspectives from a host of different advertisers to be able to weigh in on some of these issues. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Most importantly, we have Spencer Semonson. She's not new to the show, but this is, I think, a particularly interesting time in Spencer's life. This is coinciding with the week of her birthday-versary. She had not only her birthday and her anniversary at Oxford Road, and as well as New Year's and some other holidays. So, we're just doing a lot of celebrating over at the Media Roundtable. Spencer, welcome. How are you feeling? What are you doing to celebrate all of these blessings?
All these beautiful blessings. I'm using the downtime to look into audio for 2024. I just never stop caring about audio and all its beauty.
Party on. Party on. That's how we celebrate here at Oxford Road. Okay, well, thank you guys for being here. Let's get into it. Enough prefacing. This is where we have to look in the mirror and go, what did we say? And can we hold ourselves objectively to a standard to say that, yes, we were accurate, or no, we were not? And I think most of this, we're getting better every year. Okay. Some of this stuff is a little bit loose, but we try to use like more of a SMART goal approach where things are specific, measurable, time-based, so that you can actually tell, like, okay, yeah, this happened or didn't happen. And if it's too speculative, I don't think it's that interesting. Right. So let's go through and talk about some of the things we picked last year. And I'm going to say what the conclusion is. And my panel here is going to keep us honest. James has been in kind of more of like a adversarial mood, I feel like, the last few meetings I've had with him. And he's kind of taken the contrarian approach more than he usually does. So I expect if there's going to be any appeals or objections, they're probably going to come from James today, but we'll have to see. First thing we predicted is that we were going to see a boomerang effect on consumer spending. So what that meant was prior to 2023, there had been a lot of money in the marketplace during COVID, and people were buying more things. They were buying subscription after subscription, whether it was media or any other club or thing that you can participate in. And delivery, everything got delivered. And our projection was that there was going to be a downturn for companies that thrived during lockdowns. We're finally going to see the reverse of that. So do we believe that that is true or false? Did that come to pass? Yes or no? I'm saying yes. I think that clearly, objectively can be measured. Any objections here from the team?
No objections.
Not
No
even
objection.
from James. Wow. Okay, that was
Not on this
clear.
one.
Clear cut. Okay, all right, let's go to number 2. Rise of a remnant marketplace in podcasting. We thought that podcasting was going to catch up because we know that there's this long tail of shows. There's a lot of shows that get published without specific buys against them or empty seats on the plane, so to speak. What most industries do is somehow a remnant marketplace emerges and advertisers are able to buy special price deals last minute at scale. And we're going to say we were wrong on this one. That's my vote, is that we were wrong. I think we've definitely seen some of this on a publisher by publisher basis. But what we were really looking for was like a centralized market platform. And I have reason, I have it on good authority that we're going to be moving in that way. We might have been a little early on calling this one, but I'm going to say no, it's not there yet. And until there's a central kind of clearinghouse for the leftovers in this business on an episodic show hosted basis, we are not going to give ourselves credit. Do you guys agree with that conclusion?
I do, and I think since Spencer's spending all her time studying the current state of audio, I'd be particularly interested in her point of view, especially because it's what you do all day too, Spencer.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. I mean, to your point, yeah, it's definitely more publisher by publisher based. We're definitely seeing more platforms emerge, being like, look, I have thousands of shows, but we're not going into the remnant model quite yet. I think there's still a lot of inventory out there, but for the most part, with brands swooping in, we just don't see the amount of spots open that we could.
It's coming. It has to come. People will not allow that. Everybody has to maximize what they can't sell with like plan A, and there needs to be a plan B, and it can't all be programmatic shoving more ads in, right?
Exactly
so
what I was gonna say, yeah.
It's got to happen. The time is now. So keep your eyes open in 2024. We think that needs to happen. And to our chief audio officers, it's not just something to look out for, it's something to speak up about. And the actionable piece is that if you're a brand, it makes sense to buy a lot of your media up front and plan in advance. But it also is highly advisable that you hold back a certain amount of your budget for opportunistic deals, and being ready to, if you can have a hybrid where you've got your core laid in, but you've got extra dollars to deploy on things that you're going to be able to get at a discount, why wouldn't you do that? Because we think there's a lot of good value available. So it's going to happen. Keep your eyes open and join us in the call to bring this into being through a centralized platform. All right, next one. Decline in spot prices for radio. That was the prediction. It's objective, it's measurable, and the answer is yes, we were correct in that. Any objections, James?
No,
you're not supposed to object. What?
I think overall
walked right into my trap.
Overall, it's a yes. However, in some markets, on some formats, my guess is that rates either stayed steady or climbed, depending on where you are. Maybe a sports station in Philly with the Eagles may have went up around Super Bowl versus down on a music station in Oklahoma. So
yeah, I mean, I think that has to be the case. I think it has to be the case. But in mass, on all of it together, has been trending down, and we've seen the same things in podcasting.
I think that yes, the overall trend, yes, but I'm caveating that there's probably some spots.
So you're saying there are exceptions to rules in
Correct.
situations like this in a complex marketplace.
Okay,
I think we can acknowledge that.
An average is not representative of the entire.
Of course, no, we don't want to overgeneralize anybody or anything, and there's a lot of value in radio. So, I still believe radio is part of the proper a proper balanced audio diet. But as demand decreases and as prices drop and as audiences shift, I think it just needs to be approached a little bit differently and aggressively. But I do think we've talked about this ad nauseum, it's a buyer's market, right? So prices are coming down, their loss is your gain. Pay attention to radio. It's not going to die quickly. Okay. This is going to move real slow. So while it's sliding for the next 10 years and dollars are moving over for most brands to digital versions of audio, don't forget about the old stuff. You're going to get it for a song. All right. Here's our next one. And I'm just going to put James on mute for this. A move to a more responsible audio ecosystem. Podcasting specifically will become more accountable, moving away from overvaluing marquee assets towards recognizing the value of a diverse range of programs. What do we think? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's amazing. So one of the things I think that one of the themes that came up a lot when we talked to some of the leading minds and journalists last month was just this pronounced shift, not just away from these big minimum guarantees that they were paying the famous hosts that said, oh, I'm going to start a podcast, but also production costs are, really starting to get extraordinary. And I think that the market was rewarding that for a hot minute during the pandemic. And then it's like, oh, no. Turns out we overbuilt this thing. And we really only have I'm going to make up a number, but I'm going to say it's like 20 to 30% of the actual demand on some of these episodic investigative journalism shows. There's a market for it for sure. It's quality, definitely. But can you actually make your money back if you spend the kind of money they were spending? You can't. And so production's changing. And fortunately, the downstream effect of that is that as it's cheaper to produce, it's also cheaper to buy. And so some of this, where people are being more financially minded and looking for an ROI in what they manufacture, does work its way back to the advertisers. And we're happy to see it going in that direction. Okay, next one, age of verification. We said we're entering a new age. It's a dawn of a new era. And the 2023 will be marked by a significant focus on ad delivery verification, with more emphasis on where ads land in podcasts and standardizing verification methods. So do we think this happened? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 All right. It is what it is. We're right again, guys. We're basically right on all but one so far. And even that one, we're going to be right. We were just early. Just still not right. All right. Podcast ad formatting and standardization. So I may need to be James on this one. Podcast ad formats will be better defined to improve clarity and expectations around ad placement. Now, I've heard feedback that the answer to this is yes, but I don't know if I agree with that. What do you guys think on this one?
I think the answer is yes, because looking back at the prediction from last year is that there'd be a discussion around this in the market, right? And I think something I can point to go, aha, there it is earlier this year, Sounds Profitable put out their podcast industry glossary, right? So here we have the marketplace working with multiple different sources to go, how do we better define these things so we can put a language behind it so that it can be more readily understood and we can transact with each other more easily. So because of that, I use that as a big indicator to go, yes, we got a yes here. We have another win.
Spencer, what do you think?
I think if we're framing it in that way, yes, because it's we've continually been having discussions, whether at Movement or in meetings or even in Oxford Road, about this for years at this point. I think we haven't completely gotten to clarity around a lot of this because it's a moving goalpost. And maybe that's our prediction for next year, that we gain that clarity and we continue these conversations.
Well, and I think the way we wrote the prediction was that we're going to see progress. We said it's going to improve clarity. Yeah. And so I think I might be coming around. I think Stu may have convinced me. James, what's your take? Oh, No, interrupt James, please, by all means.
No, I want to hear from James first.
I don't know. I agree with everyone, and I think that it's evident in terms of having tons of conversations with our clients. They're up to speed on the trends and the lingo and all the naming conventions on that end too. So I think it's starting to leak out into the common nomenclature of podcasting.
Yeah, I mean, it just like this sounds a little wonky, but it's more important than it sounds. And to the uninitiated, when we talk about verification, it's like you think you're buying X amount of impressions. How many did you actually get? You think that your ad is going to say certain words in a certain way. How well was that executed against your expectations? Where did you fall in a spot break? Were you pre-mid or post? Were you told you were going to be pre-mid or post? How many ads were in that break? How many times did you saturate an audience or over-index just because of limitations on your platform's functionality that you hit the same listeners over and over again with your ads, right? So like that's the problem that we're talking about. And, you know, super biased. We have a partner in Podscribe who we also serve in an advisory capacity and are incentivized by them being a successful company. But I think the truth be told is, you know, we try to do partnerships with companies that we really believe are going to make the industry better. And certainly Podscribe has broken away with a number of capabilities to bring these types of verification issues to light so that advertisers have more clarity on that. And I know there are others, but I think they're probably the cleanest example. Happy to talk about other things. Email us at info@mediaroundtable.com if you want to complain about that and say that we should have talked about others. Okay, I'm going to call it a yes. We're persuaded. Okay, next one. Consumer values impacting business decisions. Now, here's the problem with this one. I don't think we transcribed it properly, and a plague has fallen upon several key contributors here at Oxford Road temporarily, which means we're shorthanded. We weren't able to actually find the specific way that this prediction was written a year ago. So we're going to have to leave it as a question mark. But let me tell you what I think we meant when what I think the spirit of this prediction was that we have seen such a pronounced shift in the name of stakeholder capitalism that reached a tipping point during the pandemic where cause-driven advertising was very much in fashion. Brands were taking positions on different causes and social good and social impact in ways we never really saw before culturally. And the prediction that I know that I had been expressing is that as the market contracts and as people kind of get back to work after the pandemic and wallets tighten and interest rates rise, we're going to see people voting less with their values. Whether or not you donate a pair of shoes to somebody in need for every pair you buy, that's going to have decreased currency for marketers as consumers start to look to their own bank accounts and put a premium on, you know, where's the value for the product first, rather than saying which brand most agrees with my values. So when I explain it that way, if we can validate that that is in fact the way the prediction was written, would we agree that that occurred and that there was a little bit of a recoiling of some of those initiatives on behalf of the marketing community in 2023?
I would, and I can think of, like, you know, anecdotally in Ad Age earlier this year in Q3, there's an article prepping advertisers for Q4 to make sure you're leading with the product, leading with what the consumer is going to get from it. That it was talking about this exact trend of moving away from just, you can't just lead with your values. You need to lead with what they're going to get in exchange for their hard-earned money as this shift is happening. A couple other things like that. So yeah, I think given the spirit of this prediction, I'd say we were right again. I'd give it a yes.
I saw James nodding, so I'm not going to call on him, but Spencer, I can't read you at all. Are you going with us on this, or what do you think?
I'm kind of split I know in the past we talked about a couple of studies that showed that people generally go with whatever ROI is the highest for them. But there has been some cause-based movement in Q4 for several different causes that has impacted some D2C businesses. So I think it really depends on like what things you put the most behind, what PR strategy you have for the future, and how the political landscape shifts because we're in a political year. So, I mean, it's kind of going to be a little bit chaotic, in my opinion, especially with the media that people choose to align with. But for the most part, I think because of the economic situation, people will, for the most part, be split 50-50 based on what they see in the market.
All right. Well, we're going to say it's a hung jury on this one just because we don't have confidence in what question we're actually holding ourselves accountable to, and we'll revisit it and try to report back in this week's Influencer. The next one that we do have accuracy on is that we said there would be an improvement in pixel tracking and metrics, and that marketers will see better data brought on by better or more widely adopted tech. Do we believe this happened? Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yeah.
I'll take a maybe. Sure.
I wouldn't say it's better data. I think it's more data, and I think it's up for interpretation. And if it's
more data is not better data. Come on,
quantity has a quality all of its own.
Just data. I love data.
I think it brings more questions to other marketing channel performance once audio pixel data shows such strong results.
Have you guys ever talked to anybody that didn't say they work at a data-driven company or their company's very data-driven?
No.
Has anyone ever
not?
It's been a long time since somebody didn't say that. All right. I'm going to call it a yes. I think it is improving incrementally just before it gets crushed by a meteor in the form of Google. So, that's we're not going to carry this one forward, but it's true. All right. Next up, brand safety and suitability tools. These tools will continue to make podcast advertising safer for brands, potentially leading to more blue chip companies entering the space. James, go first.
Yes, 100%.
Spencer, go second.
1,000,000% yes.
Oh, wow. Stu, where are you
yes,
going to go
a
with
gajillion%.
we have enthusiasm for this one. Do we care about brand safety and suitability on the Media Roundtable podcast? Let's move on. Shift from here's a final prediction on 2023. Okay, here's how we did. Shift from direct to consumer brand brand advertising. So direct to consumer brands who really have been the cornerstone of our agency, and I believe the cornerstone of the podcast industry to get it off the ground. I think that many of them, I don't want to say they're being disenfranchised, but they're definitely being crowded out by brand dollars. And I think that that's been pretty objectively proven, with some studies coming out even suggesting that the share of spend is actually now higher from brand advertisers versus direct response, those with calls to action and vanity URLs and second layer surveys and all that fancy stuff. So we're going to say we're right on that. So look, bottom line is, guys, we should flex a little bit. We had 10 predictions. We're confident that we wrote 9 of them accurately. So start there. Of those 9 that we're confident that we wrote accurately, we actually got an affirmative confirmation that we were correct on 8 of the 9. Come on. Like, if you guys, if we were trying to pick who's going to win for president or something, you know how famous we would be for that. They'd have us on everything given the accuracy that we've established in this industry. So if you don't listen to what we have to say, I just want to tell you, we're going to call in shots. We're going to come in at 20% accuracy next year.
You set it up real good, though.
Yeah. Manage expectations, right? All right.
Yeah.
Let's move to the second piece of this conversation here. We're going to talk about some questions that have come up on the show before, but we haven't really provided the perspective of the firm. And you guys, because you're participating in this particular episode, you're going to help determine and solidify what our firm believes. So the first question, and we can do a little bit of rapid fire here, but we'll just go through. So the first question is, all of audio in 2024, is listenership going to go up or down year over year, up or down in aggregate? That means radio, streaming, podcast, all of it, up or down. Spencer, call the shot. Up. James.
Up.
Stu, I can't imagine where you're going to land here.
Up.
Second topic. So we're all bullish on listenership. Now, what about revenue? Do we think that revenue is going to go up or down in 2024, year over year? And remember, you've got the slow melting iceberg of radio. You've got the super cool pure players like Pandora and Spotify on streaming. You've got radio broadcasters streaming, and you've got broadcasters broadcasting. And satellite casters satellite casting, or at least there's one. Satelliting, correct.
Yeah.
More or less, más o menos. Stu.
More across the board.
James.
With more listeners, there comes more revenue, so more.
Spencer.
C.
I like it. Pricing in 2024. This is on CPMs, okay? And this is hard because you're blending different slices of the audio pie that are moving in different directions. So give me your predictions in aggregate. Radio, streaming, and podcast combined, the $18-ish billion domestic, $36 billion international advertising business. James, up or down?
I think neutral.
Flat.
Flat.
Spencer, flat. Stu.
Down.
Okay, make your cases, guys. Somebody, why down, Stu?
Well, you know what? Even as I said that, I'm thinking twice about it because of this election year. I think broadly over the next 2 years, it's absolutely down. This year could be like a false positive that it won't look like it's going down because of the election. But in 2025, it's going to be down over 2023 or 2022. So it's a little bit of I'm sliding around there. The other thing I want to say is I think we are going to begin to see tiered pricing in podcast, where there's going to be, especially with some of this other stuff we're talking about, there's going to be different pricing for a human to voice something versus just like a produced ad or an AI produced ad. But
we do have that.
That's my non-answer answer. Yes, we do have that.
All right, Spencer, with that, your commentary.
I was thinking it would be up because I've already put in multiple annuals where specific to the election part of the year, it's higher pricing. And I also have tiered based on different PE expectations. I think that podcast could go up in certain areas and stay neutral, but radio and streaming will continue to go down. So that's why I was in aggregate flat.
So I'm going to respond to your numbers. I think I'm landing in the same place as you, that I think it's going to go down, because even though I agree with you that radio comes down because it's radio, and it's not digital. Streaming comes down because you're going to have a big attribution problem, and Pixels kind of gave a boon to the streaming business that I think we're going to have a backlash against. Podcasts, I agree with you, is going to go up. But the problem is podcast is still only like barely, it's 10% of the revenue in the field. So even if it's up, it can't be up enough to wash the other two. So I'm voting down. The other thing is, when you think about an election bump, I was doing light research on this and trying to figure out like what's the total aggregate impact. And what it says is in the weeks, months leading up to an election, you could see a double-digit increase in spend in an election year. But if you look at that as like 1/4 out of 4, and you're saying you could get to double digits, okay, great. What's a quarter of 15%? 3-4%. So I don't think it's going to be material enough to wash it. Otherwise, it's what some folks call a dead cat bounce. It goes up, but it doesn't. That's not indicative of life. You're just seeing gravity. Content investments, up or down? This is the easiest question to predict. But somehow we have contradictory picks here. So Spencer, what do you think? people going to spend more or less on the manufacturing of audio content in 2024 than they did in 2023?
I think definitely up.
They're going to spend more?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I know that, I mean, I understand that people think no because the big bets are done and the funny money isn't flowing. But I've already seen multiple, new networks emerge that are being funded on the back end, and personalities and influencer culture are still one of the main drivers during economic downturns. So I believe, based on how low it's been in 2023, it can't go anywhere but up.
Stu, you've got some background in production. Investment goes up.
Yeah, for a couple of reasons. So one is, I think with all this AI tech, there's going to be a massive shift across all the commercial arts towards human made, not touched by robots, which translates to a greater cost, right? So you're going to see something about how this was recorded, especially without any of the stuff, any of the high tech stuff. The other piece that I think is more significant and meaningful is audiobooks and kids programming. I think both of those are expanding and will continue to expand. And as they expand, that's going to add more dollars into the content piece. Are people going to be spending top dollar on top talent? No, but I think across the board, you're going to see investments go up.
I think I said right in the middle, neutral, because for every brand that wants to pay for human made is going to have a whole bunch of brands who just want it dirt cheap. And I think it's going to stay neutral. Just like we just talked about the D2C versus brand advertising, you're going to have a different mix. So I'm going middle of the road. They're going to cancel each other out.
Hard veto. Hard veto. We are bearish on aggregate production costs. Let me tell you why. Think about all the layoffs that happened this year, the tragic, sad reductions in force across all the publishers. You think they're going to go, yes, spend another 50 grand an episode on this production with the skeleton crew that's left? No, they're going to cut that they're going to say, do it for 10. It's audio. You can do it cheaper. You can always do it cheaper. I agree with the spirit of what you guys are saying in a lot of these. Stu, I think you're right in that, humans are the new, the relationships are the new oil. I do believe in craftsmanship. It's like vinyl enthusiasts, but a bigger market share than that. But I don't think that replaces the fact that the investments are going away from paying for creating content. They're not as willing to speculate. They're not willing to spend $1 million on a short-term series that they may never see their money back, because too many of them lost their money this year. Guys, there's just no way in this economic environment, when departments are being shuttered, that they're going to go up on those budgets. I can't see how anything supports it. So all content investment down, says the group, against their will. AI, will it do more to harm the industry, or will it do more good for the industry in 2024? James.
Good.
Spencer.
Neutral.
Stu.
Yeah, I feel the same way about this prediction as the last one, is that good in the long run, but a workout is good, but in the middle of the workout you'd be like, is this harming the muscle? Is this breaking the muscle down? It is. So yeah, this is going to be good for the industry. Do we feel the good in 24, or is 24 the year of a lot of pain and then the real benefits 25? With that said, I'll go with good, knowing that I think whatever pain happens this year from AI, ultimately it's good for the industry in the long run.
I'm going to vote harm, but not with the same conviction as the last one. I'll give you my case. I think that the illusion is going to be that it's going to impact programming. But when we've got all the money and resources thrown at content, and then you look year over year at the top 10, and they're basically all the same shows. So it's like, it almost doesn't matter what you spend or what you create. It's hard to get in now. And so I think that when people start going, oh, we're going to do an AI podcast. Look, we simulated somebody's voice. We've got somebody's thoughts. Like, it's just going to dilute. There's going to be too many problems. And I don't think people are going to be that into it. I think people are going to move toward things like live, things that are more precious, things that are more local. Stu is talking about kids programming, other genres that we're going to expand into. So I think that's going to be what people talk about, but it's not going to be what actually has impact. The thing that will have the positive impact is beneath the surface, when you're finding new ways to do processes that were rote or very labor intensive by human beings. Those are going to get more efficient. I think that's the real upside. It's all back office. Now, my final prediction, and I know Stu's ready to get in here, but the kind of the reason I think it's going to do more harm is not even because of economic impact or use cases. I think it's going to be when somebody blows the whistle on somebody doing something that is not clearly artificial, but is artificial, and calls the whole authenticity of the channel into question. When you find out that your favorite host didn't even know he recorded the ad that he just gave his personal recommendation for, that's when I think we get bad press. I think somebody gets caught looking foolish because they paid for a fake endorsement. And I think it causes real backlash in the marketplace and an erosion of trust, which washes out the operational efficiency gained by implementing AI into the back office. That's my hot take. Stu, what you got?
Well, what I think is the couple benefits you talked about. I think one, the creative benefit is massive. So what's the real value of that? And so that's why I'm saying it's good, and you articulated it well, is pushes people to live, it pushes people to be more human, kids programming, all this sort of stuff, operational efficiencies. And then even the thing you talked about, which in the short term is going to be painful, long term, any industry that has that kind of that happens inside of it, that's not going to collapse podcasting. It will be a wound that then has to heal, that actually long term is beneficial. And I don't think there's a way to get through this AI thing without something like that happening, that then we go, oh, okay, I can't touch that hot frying pan again.
I listen, on the long term, I agree with everything that you said. I think it's temporary pain, but I'm just saying when it happens, I think it's going to sting.
Now.
It's going to cause change. And I think that's going to be a hiccup that's a little bomb. It's a little landmine just waiting to go off once it gets tripped this year. And so I'm saying I think that's going to happen, but I could be super wrong about this one. Okay. Content investment. We talked about AI. We talked about two more on the standards. Then we'll get to the creative ones and get out of here. Get back to your Wednesday, our Friday. Standard definitions. The industry will become more standardized. Will it become more standardized or more chaotic in 2024 in terms of the way that we all function as an industry? We move in towards chaos or order? Stu.
Order.
James.
I think the middle.
Spencer.
Chaos.
Yeah, I'm going chaos. I kind of feel like it's got to get worse before it gets better in some areas. And I think we're seeing like growth and improvements, but I think that there's just not enough pain yet that people are feeling to solve some of these really hard problems. Simple example, definition of a podcast. Like, when does somebody suffer enough? When do people suffer enough collectively, financially, to go, hey, let's get together and agree on something and like have a standard definition, right? And so it could go either way on this, but I think we need to absorb increased pain in order to get this stuff buffed out. So I'm a bear on the short term, bull on the long term. All right, so tell me if you've ever heard of any of these companies. Indeed, Shopify, NetSuite, Headspace, Quip, Theragun, Postmates. You know, I'm not only the host of the Media Roundtable, but also CEO of a company called Oxford Road, and we are the world's leading independently owned and operated audio ad agency. And what that means is that we help great companies, many that you have probably heard of on some of the other podcasts that you listen to, We help them test and scale campaigns in audio channels, with podcast being one of those leading channels. Some of the work that we do includes media planning and buying, as well as analytics, attribution, and insights. And we also have a very special way that we deal with creative and copy generation. We have our own proprietary process called Audiolytics that allows us to score ads for their persuasiveness. If you're looking to be involved in audio and you want a partner that can help work with you to make sure that you achieve unprecedented ROI and massive scale, you should get in touch with us at Oxford Road. And by the way, the only reason that we're able to do the work of the Media Roundtable is because we have a great team at Oxford Road that supports us and makes it possible. So, what we're doing is not just a podcast, but we're really trying to help brands live out their values and balance that with their business objectives, which is an increasingly hard thing to do in this world of misinformation and malice that's infecting so much of our media. But at Oxford Road, we don't want to just broker this stuff. We want to impact the industry for good. We want to raise the bar on what gets created. And Oxford Road is helping make that possible through the Media Roundtable. So if you're somebody that's interested in working with an ad agency or a partner on this type of work for your advertising campaigns, go to oxfordroad.com. It's easy to spell. And get in touch with us, or at least just sign up for our free newsletter, The Influencer. That's oxfordroad.com. Any other standing predictions? Now let's go to the catch-all. And I'm going to let James, we're going to go fast through some of these, but this is kind of our final round here. There's been a three-parter. These are less about, the ones we just went through. We talked to Sky Pillsbury, Ariel Shapiro, and James Cridland, as well as Stephen Goldstein. So a lot of journalists and luminaries in the industry. We got their opinions. We just gave you ours. We're going to line all those up and present them to you. Make sure you're subscribed to The Influencer, which of course you are, so you can kind of see and make your own plans accordingly. Like I said, look out, because we're pretty accurate. Let's move on to you, James. You got some Pixel predictions. I do. Last year we said there was going to be more Pixel. What's going to happen in 2024? We get more Pixel, less Pixel?
I think down with the Pixel.
Down with the Pixel.
Yeah. Well, listen, it more pertains to some websites and everything. I think it's going to trickle into audio, or at least plant some seeds of doubt in its ability to track accurately, which means all eyes are going to be on the "How'd you hear about us" survey, and possibly even the "When did you hear about us" aspect of the survey.
Tell us about the Whitey How. Why are you bullish on the Whitey How? Is 2024 the year of the Whitey How? Maybe that's our headline for this episode.
That would be nice. I mean, because it helps brands triangulate when their message had an impact, or when the consumer converted from that message. Because we have some clients who are seasonal. They're active in the winter, and they have conversions that happen in the spring and summer from hearing a message in the winter. So there's a lot of "When did you hear about us" that shows and could really prove to optimize some of our clients' budgets, positively or negatively.
So I agree with you that being able to correlate your performance to an anticipated payback period would help a lot with performance marketers who are modeling it out. So full agreement for me on this. I guess the question is, do you feel like there's any momentum behind it, or is this something we're going to have to make some noise about?
We're going to have to make some noise about it.
All right. So will it be the year of the Whitey How? I guess if you're partnering with us through the Chief Audio Officer Club, or you're an agency client, or you work here, we may have to lead the charge on this one, because it's a really significant missed opportunity. As are some of the improvements that we've been pushing on the "How'd you hear about us?" You have to have something that isn't going to get crushed when another private or another company makes a policy decision, like Google changing their cookie policy. That can't be the only defense you have as a brand to knowing how customers are engaging based on your ads. It's very, very important to ask them directly. Surveys are not going anywhere, even if Pixel rules change. So invest in the Heidi How. And let's talk about what Whitey How. when you got a minute.
It's hard to argue with human input.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do another one, and we'll go quick on this one. I do believe we've talked about brand safety on this show before, and I'm going to predict that brand safety tech solutions, flawed as they are, but that they are going to become a standard offering for the institutional podcast publishers. It's going to take a little while before it gets to streaming and radio, but I actually think a lot of the work we're engaged in podcast is going to have a ripple effect. And I think you're going to see other channels using this, not just audio channels. I think influencer marketing would benefit from a lot of the approaches that we're pioneering right here, actually, on this show. That's kind of why we started the show, is to solve this issue. So I think that's going to increase. And I think really Spencer's the one who can validate this or not. We know that we're seeing an increase in publishers creating an offering, but the question is, do you think it's going to become 12 months from now a standard offering from most publishers?
Oh, absolutely. And the way that, who could pixel and who couldn't was the main conversation in 2020, 2021. Now it's, who has a relationship with Barometer and who doesn't, who's using, who's inside of Seeker. That's just like something we validate now. But by the end of the year, everyone will already have that relationship, and most already do.
Yeah, and standard disclaimer: we're entangled with all these companies, or many of them, right? So at least the couple that you've talked about, because we believe that they are at the forefront of moving the industry in the direction that it needs to go, and we've been co-launching products for the last 3 years to try to make the industry more safe for anybody that cares about aligning their brand values with their business objectives. So the fight continues. Okay, next one, Spencer. There's going to be some lawsuits, I hear. Let's talk about it.
I would say for sure legal action will be taken against a brand for working with either an influencer or an audio host who use fraudulent PE. And I know we already talked about...
Whoa.
What?
Come on. I know that, listen, we like to party the way you like to party with podcast data, right?
Heck,
but
yes.
You just drop PE. Sometimes that means private equity. Sometimes that means gym class. What do you mean when you say PE?
Personal endorsement.
Personal endorsement.
Okay, so yes, host read can be what we call a straight read.
Mm-hmm.
When we just read the copy.
Mm-hmm.
Basically the same as a brand play. And then we have personal endorsement, the cornerstone of podcast advertising,
Mm-hmm.
which is when they say they use the product, they love the product, they've gotten their whole family to use the product saved their life, and the read is that much better.
Mm-hmm.
I think in early 2023 and other parts of 2023, we had some influencer marketers get in trouble for giving fake personal endorsement or saying something fraudulent in their ad read. And that's already lent to a couple of lawsuits on TikTok, which has a lot of overlap with podcasts. We've talked about how there's a significant overlap with influencer marketing, and between AI becoming a tiered system in pricing and the issues around personal endorsement in general, whenever we vet or onboard a host, it's definitely coming where the FTC is going to be taking action. If not today, then tomorrow or the next day.
Stu, did you have something to say on this one?
I think this isn't NOM. There are rules here. I think that, as this continues to, the AI thing develops, like with Arnold Schwarzenegger's podcast, we're invariably going to see, I think Spencer's spot on, first there's going to be legal action of some kind, and then possibly an update to the FTC guidelines, or maybe, as we've been talking in the show prep, more firm application of what was updated just this last year. Nevertheless, the thing that I think you'll see come from this is some sort of standardization of a disclaimer, like what James Cridland does on his podcast, where it goes, "This was created by AI." That that when you hear it, right? something like that. But I think Spencer's spot on. I think there's going to be action. There will be action. There will be blood.
So if I'm an advertiser, I'm listening to this, I'm going, okay, how do I make sure that I am not on that list? How do I not make sure that there is an action? How do I make sure there's no action taken against me? What do I need to do?
I think that's a great question. It's a great so what. It's first of all, go for personal endorsements that are read by the host. And the main thing is, like, you know, if you're working direct or hopefully working with an agent, someone that's working on your behalf with Oxford Road, to go, we need to see the verification that it was the individual that did this. You just have to ask for that. You want to get that additional layer of proof as people are continuing to figure out the lane lines, right? Because until there are standards and expectations, look, if somebody on the side, I've got clone versions of my voice. So I can make a Stew recording of anything right now. So if they're doing that for your spots, do you know that? Do you not know that? It's about asking for that level of transparency to go, this absolutely is read by the host, and hopefully it's a live read. It's seamlessly integrated right into the content. I would start there.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, pretty simple advice, which is don't let people say that they do something. Don't pay somebody to say that they did something they didn't actually do, right?
Correct.
Seems pretty straightforward. The problem is, I think sometimes through intermediaries, this stuff gets screwed up. So a copywriter says, I use this and you should too. And a lot of hosts, and, you know, I think we do a pretty good job protecting from this on behalf of the brands that we work with. But in my prior life in radio, I would see people that would submit a script and have somebody sell a product with a firsthand testimonial that I knew they didn't use. And it always pissed me off. And I think that, like, some people look at it like, oh, it's just marketing, it's make believe, but it's not a cartoon, it's reality, and you're trading on trust. And so, you know, I think we have to increasingly, you know, and just kind of talking inside baseball here, I think we have to increasingly hold the line with our relationships to make sure brands are asking things that are verifiable of their talent, and that the talent is not overstepping and saying things that aren't actually true, but we are partnering with the talent to make the things that we want them to say true before they actually say them. I mean, sounds simple, it's hard to execute, but I think it's the right way to do business. So good call out, Spencer. I'm going to make the next prediction, which is that the radio problem will continue. And I think the way you measure that is with revenue, but also I think you're going to see the kind of causal factors that you're just not seeing enough innovation. And I want to say this. I love radio. I got into this. I've been in audio for 20 years. The first 10 were working for radio with iHeart, Clear Channel. And, you know, James comes from Odyssey, Entercom, CBS, right? So, like, we've got deep roots in audio. These are our people that work at these radio groups. They're smart people. They're good people. They're hardworking people. And they've got a beautiful product. The challenge that the industry has is that it is completely hamstrung by the financial entanglements and expectations of the people that have given so much money to them to go through consolidation in the 90s and, you know, just dealing with decades of secondary effects to not make long-term investments in innovation, and being saddled with these signals that they have to rationalize, where they have their arms tied behind their backs by the FCC. It's really, really hard to innovate. And so I think by necessity, you're going to see innovation coming from digitally native platforms. You see a lot of that with Spotify and Pandora, but I think you're going to have to see some new media businesses come out of the internet that are starting to move into areas like local and doing 24/7 streams of thematic content. And I think that's going to end up replacing what we now know as a 24/7 radio station. This thing is going to take some time to do it, and I don't think the players that are there are able to do it. So we're going to keep seeing this thing decline until somebody's ready to make some long-term investments. It's not their fault. It's just they're in a tough position. All right. Sonic branding second coming.
Yes.
Stu, I believe this is you.
I believe it is me too. Yes. The rise of podcast has reinvigorated a focus on audio. We've all been experiencing it. And as with smart speakers, like audio listenership is going up. And so marketers and people are paying notice, and you're seeing increased focus on that. So my prediction is threefold. It's really one. It's that you're going to see sonic branding increase year over year, 2024 to 2023. But how do we measure that? A couple different ways. Looked at the top 5 spenders in podcast and the top 5 in radio. And in podcast, 0 out of 5 in 2023 are using any sonic branding elements. And how do we define that? From the International Sound Awards, sonic branding is a brand sound that represents the identity and values of a brand in a distinctive manner. So it'd be like an audio sonic logo, brand and functional sound, brand music, a jingle or a voice. So none of them had that. And I want to say 1.5 out of 5 had sonic branding as out of the top spenders in radio. And I say 1.5 because one of them was Indeed. The other one is T-Mobile with their bum. So it's got T-Mobile's audio logo. The other one was Indeed because they're starting to do this thing in their audio ads that I like, where they have a character say their character's in a scenario where they need to hire. And then the character says, I need Indeed. And the announcer says, Indeed, you do. And they do that very consistently. So I'm giving them a half point for that. So right now, if you combine those two, it's only 1.5 out of 10 of the top audio advertisers are using sonic branding. I'm predicting that's going to increase for 2024. And we also know that in the Super Bowl, 11 out of the 16 companies that had sonic logos that had Super Bowl ads, only 11 of them included their sonic logo. So I'm also calling that shot early, in that the percent of companies with sonic logos in the Super Bowl is going to increase the number that use their sonic logo in their ad from 68% in 2023. And those are my indicators for the focus on sonic branding is increasing.
So 3 things I want to say on this. Number one, what is sonic branding? I think you gave a great definition. Another way to say it is it's now illegal to use the word jingle. When you're talking
that's
about
one aspect of it. Yeah, that's one aspect of it.
Yeah, but this is the evolution. This is the digital version. This is the modern version of what used to be jingles.
No, the modern definition from the International Sound Awards is a brand sound that represents the identity and values of a brand in a distinctive manner.
Thank you. Got it. That's on the record. It's on the record. The second thing is I think on our behalf, I would say it's really hard to pick a sonic a signature here, and I know that because I can't even figure out like how we should change the music on this podcast, which we keep talking about. But it's true; it's really, really hard when it's time to like physician heal thyself on this stuff. But I think it's worth it to do the exploration, and you can you can spend a lot or a little. But it's, I think the value of it in building the brand, I think all the research supports it. It's a healthy thing. So get in touch with Stu if you want to do it. The other thing is I just want to give some praise to Stu. You're hearing a head of creative at an ad agency who's using very precise framework material for how a SMART goal or a prediction is defined. And you can hear that he's been trained in the way of Rasky's, Gantt charts, all of these things. So well done on the structure there, Stu. But nice, thoughtful way to make these things.
I have all those merit badges.
Yes, you deserve them.
In the other room. Okay,
men will die for ribbons.
Yes.
So says Napoleon. Okay, let's talk about AI voice while we're at it. We talked about this earlier. I'm just going to say there's going to be, in the same way Spencer called out, there's going to be a backlash for inauthentic endorsements by humans. I'm saying there's also going to be backlash for AI voices that are inauthentic, and we talked about that enough already. So I'm just going to keep moving. I'm going to do one more, and then we're gonna close with a couple powerful ones by James. But the other one I want to throw out there is, look, we took a hard run at the smart speaker in 2019. The Alexa revolution. Two of you, James wasn't here yet, but you guys survived the great the great Alexa push that we did. And I think we gained some ground, and we found what I personally believe is the future of the platform is dynamic audio, a two-way speaker, and being able to interact with content and make it more of what you want through voice commands. I think you're going to see meaningful progress where the revenue growth from dynamic audio outpaces the growth of the audio market in 2024. So I'm going to put that on the table. Anybody want to say anything about that?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think voice is the new interface and is going to become the dominant interface the next 5 to 10 years. And I think this is a great prediction. And
then our fingers and all extremities are just going to wither and fall off of our bodies because everything is just too much work.
You'll just be able to say it.
Yep. And then you get what you want. It knows. So we'll deal with the implications of that later. Finally, let's come back to James. James, you have a couple predictions here. And the first one I'd like you to speak about is the Apple Corporation.
I just have a feeling, in the industry, it's like, are you iPhone or Android? And in the music industry, are you Apple Music or Spotify? And Spotify has been so active in the podcast space, and Apple just has their podcast app. So I have a feeling they're going to either make an acquisition somehow in the audio space, probably in podcasting.
What are you basing this on, by the way?
Just prediction. I feel like they
just prediction.
Well, Apple, I follow Apple.
I like it, James. I like it.
Can we use that? Is that audio lytics approved? Can we say
the force?
Predictions say.
Predictions.
What I'm really basing on is
he's got his title.
All of our ads from here forward are going to use predictions say as a proof point. That's how we substantiate all claims henceforth.
No, but seriously, Apple is never first with anything, but they're always better or best in a category. They're not the first ones with a phone. They perfected it. They're not the first ones with a tablet. They perfected it. So
were they the first ones to take away the buttons?
I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that.
The answer is yes. I don't know. Spencer, you can correct.
I do feel like they are going to make a major purchase or acquisition in the audio field, whether it's a radio company, whether it's a podcast company, whether it's their own podcast studio. Like they weren't first in streaming, and now look at all the awards they win for their Apple TV. I think podcasting and audio is on tap for them to do something big in.
Does anybody want to say anything about that?
I mean, would that count as investment into content? Because then that'll help kind of bolster my prediction on the content thing, James. If your Apple thing comes true,
you think so?
That's a content investment, right? That qualifies.
Yeah, but they're going to like tip the scales. They'll do like $5 billion into something.
Yeah, that'll be perfect then. Yeah, because yes, then I'm on board. Yes.
Okay.
Spencer.
One of those annoying people who have an Android and rude the group chat, so I don't have.
I don't get it. You know what?
I understand, Spencer. I can identify, and I made the switch in the past few months after being Android for years, and you can do it.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, if you ever want to take that step, I'm right here. I can help.
Thank you for being my support system.
What do they call that? They call that opposition disorder or something like that. That's what I think a lot of you are dealing with here. I protest. I think that we need professionals that can stage interventions for Android users who don't have to be. If it's a matter of financial hardship, I understand, and we are supportive of that. But when this is a choice that you're making that affects people around you, the people closest to you in your life, and you choose to make them suffer, like, I don't know what to tell you. It's not very golden rule of you, Spencer.
So anyway, Spencer switch to Apple in 2024.
The golden rule extends to yourself as well.
All right. Well, fair enough. Okay, by the way, I have to disclose I've already given you misinformation in this program. I said in the previous question, because I was being argumentative with James, I said, well, who didn't they take away the keypads? But it turns out, no, Apple was not the first company to remove keypads from smartphones. So I was wrong. James is absolutely correct. And who knows, maybe his prediction will actually come to pass. James, you have one final prediction that I think is maybe the most important of them all. What do you think?
I think that in 2024, Taylor Swift is going to enter the only industry that she has yet to conquer. She's conquered the stage, the cinema, music, awards, you name it. She's going to enter podcasting.
Yes.
She cannot sit there.
Quick clarifying question. Who's Taylor Swift?
Oh, you know her. She's only Times Person of the Year.
Is she the one that interrupts Kanye at the award shows?
No, that's what fueled her fire. But I'm just thinking
James is our foremost Taylor Swift advocate.
He is dating Travis Kelce.
If there were a Taylor Swift account, he would cover it exclusively.
Yeah. But think about it. Her boyfriend is top of the world, #1 podcast out there. You think she's going to sit back and let him be the #1?
I don't.
Nope.
No.
And do you think they're going to be dating in a month, though? Do you think they were ever dating? Is that a real thing?
I think it's real.
You don't think that's all AI generated? Like that's an actual authentic relationship?
No, but here's a caveat, though. I think she's going to do it in a very limited series because she doesn't want to commit to it. It's just going to be just to get.
But she'll dominate if she does.
If she does, she'll dominate for sure.
Right. Yeah. She'll have a stat that will never be beat. It'll be the most downloads in week 1 or whatever it is, and she'll just do it to announce some album and go away.
So what's the so what for chief audio officers, James?
Get in early before the pricing goes up.
Call James, and if not, he'll just talk to you about Taylor Swift if you want him to. It's either Taylor Swift, The Offspring, or podcasts. Any one of those subjects you want to talk to somebody about, James is your guy. Okay, final prediction, and then we're going to close, okay? The longest podcast in history, we're going to close. I predict that by the end of 2024, the Media Roundtable podcast will have a new intro and outro song. But until then, and by the way, I'd love your opinion on this. Should we, now that it's in the public domain, should we just do the Steamboat Willie soundtrack? Where he's like whistling on the boat.
Let's go.
We can do it, right? Is everybody going to do that? Is that going to be the New Heights soundtrack now that it's available to anybody? Because we don't want to sound like we're trying to rip anybody off here. So that's those are our predictions. We're sticking to them. And now that they're said, they're in stone. We're going to be accountable on these. We're going to tell you what happened. And thank you for listening to all 57 of our predictions for 2024. It's going to be a busy year, I think. So thank you for joining the Media Roundtable. Thank you, James. You weren't that argumentative. Thank you, Spencer, and happy birthday and happy anniversary. Happy everything. And thank you, Stew, and for all that you brought into the framing with specificity and substantiation for your predictions.
You're most welcome.
If you have any predictions for 2024 that we didn't mention, or you just want to tell us how to do our jobs better when we're trying to manufacture a show, production budgets are down. We know this, but give us your ideas. We want to hear them. Email us at info@mediaroundtable.com. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. This podcast is brought to you by Oxford Road, where we want you to succeed into audio and to use your influence for good. Audio is such a beautiful industry. It should be twice the size that it is, but it is the last kitchen table conversation that exists in this country. It's where we can model the healthy, responsible, and free exchange of ideas. We need to make it better, and we can do that by improving the industry and making it more sustainable. And if we start with the brands that support it with ad dollars, that can follow all the way through to a better experience for the listeners, the audience. The audience is never wrong. If you're a marketer and you want to align with our vision, reach out to our agency, Oxford Road, by visiting oxfordroad.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter, The Influencer. Special thanks to Bianca, Kyle, Haley, Scott, Mary Jane, Everett, all the people I forgot to name, and the team at Podcast One. And as always, influence responsibly.